Alleluia. Om Mani Padme. Om. Allah.
Hello and welcome to Harmony in Diversity, a program that endeavours to encourage harmony and diversity across the wide range of faiths and beliefs here in Victoria, by showcasing individuals and groups involved in interfaith and multi-faith activities. On last week's program, we interviewed Jessiee Kaur Singh, one of the founders of the Centre of Melbourne Multi-Faith and Others Network. Her husband, Dya Singh, is also involved with C.O.M.M.O.N, and as a musician has a particular perspective on the interfaith area. He is also the person responsible for the multi-faith chant you hear over the titles of this program. Norm Curry has been talking to Dya.
Dya, you describe yourself as a spiritual musician and that you work in meditation and vocal training, cultural awareness, and you're obviously a very enthusiastic multi-faith exponent. The question which arises, for me at least, is what's a spiritual musician?
I guess this goes back to my family background. Mm-hmm. My father was a spiritual minstrel in the Sikh tradition. Mm-hmm. And he reached out only to the converts, the Sikhs,
yes. Mm-hmm.
the faithful.
Mm-hmm.
So his vision was fairly narrow in that sense because he knew one language.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he preached through his music and his hymns.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the broader dimension that has come by into my existence was first of all the fact that he left India, which is the cradle of our music and our background, our culture, our spirituality, our faith. And he moved to Malaysia, mm-hmm. where a lot of Sikhs had migrated through the British influences as security guards, the police, the army, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But then they settled in Malaysia, and I was born in Malaysia. I wasn't born in India. And I guess I was born in a very multicultural, multi-religious setting.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
My influences were a little bit different. I went to a Muslim kindergarten.
Oh, right.
I studied the Muslim prayers
mm-hmm.
before I studied my own.
Oh, right.
There were Christians, Chinese, they had their own way of prayers, meditation. And what I was listening to right from the moment I was born was perhaps the cry of the muezzin, the
yes.
church bells,
yes.
the Chinese Buddhist incantations.
Mm-hmm.
I can smell the joss sticks.
Mm.
We used to celebrate each other's celebrations, Christmas, Malay, the Muslim New Year, Ramadan. The Christians used to get together, the Sikhs used to get together. Wherever there was a celebration, we were part of it. So our very open spiritual awareness was there from the word go. In a very
mm-hmm.
multicultural place like
mm-hmm.
Malaysia, going back 60 years.
Yes.
Those influences came into my music from a very young age. And of course, I had the Malay language. I went to an English school. I listened to Elvis Presley, the Beatles, and so I also had those Western influences. So when it came to actually sitting with my father and going through my spiritual music, from my core spiritual music, I guess from a very young age I could see the potential of spreading it out into a wider arena.
Yes.
And so from there, from Malaysia, I moved to England, where perhaps I did not do much because I was more interested in my vocation. I became an accountant.
Right.
But once I came to Australia, when I came to Australia 30 years ago this year, the advent of multiculturalism was just beginning.
Yes.
Bob Hawke and all that.
Yes.
And for all its limitations and shortcomings, there was also an amazing vision which I became a part of. And that vision was, I have this ability of being able to produce my own spiritual music, but in a Western setting because I can speak in English.
Yes. Yeah.
So that helped me to get musicians who were non-Sikhs to come and join me in my core spirituality. And then as time went on, I found that it also had the tremendous potential of being a language without any barriers. I could reach out to Buddhists, I could reach out to Christians, to Hindus, whoever came in my way. I was able to sit down with them, learn from them,
Yes.
and also use whatever I could learn and turn it around and present it back to them in a very unique form. And I get a tremendous kick out of that.
Yes. Do you see any lessons for Australia in the Malaysia experience because of its multicultural reality?
Yes, there is. Sadly, I'll have to say that that's going back to a Malaysia 60 years ago.
Yes.
The British had a great deal to do with that because they opened up the doors for the Chinese to come in, the South Indians to come in, the Sikhs to come in. So Malaysia became a very multicultural place without anyone having to nurse it
Yes.
or push it. It was natural. My neighbors were Christians and Muslims and Buddhists and Sikhs, all sorts of denominations around me. In Australia, it has had to be nurtured.
Yes.
Don't forget, Australia was a white policy going back 35, 40 years, not very long ago. Our Aboriginal people did not get their rights till the very late 60s, 72 with Gough Whitlam. That's when the whole thing actually came to the fore.
That's right.
And from a strictly white policy, and then to move into multiculturalism,
Yes.
of course, that's a quantum leap.
So it's a big move.
But Australia has done it very well, and I have seen it for the last 30 years. So I don't know whether it's a question of learning something from the Malaysian model, or rather setting up a model of our own. And I think it's very healthy. We have been very lucky. What I have seen over the last 30 years, I think Australia has been very, very lucky to be able to get the best that we can
Yes.
and leave out those parts of it which we do not want.
Where do you think that music fits into that dialogue in the Australian context?
Look, the people who actually change the world are artists, and God forbid, but it's a fact of life, politicians. All right, so, but it's the artists who push that.
Yes.
And we have artists from all over the world here. We pride ourselves, 126 different
Yes.
kinds of culturally diverse artists in this country.
Yes.
And they have started liaising with each other. An artist will first of all look for his or her own purity in her background. But then once you get caught up in this beautiful Australian new diversification that we are seeing,
Yes.
there is a natural urge for them to also do something in the wider arena.
Yes.
And music is playing a very big part in it. You go to some of the top shows that you have these days, and I'm talking of things like Anzac Day, Australia Day. All right, you might have the Western music there, but more often than not, it's not complete until you have the Africans playing their drums,
Yes.
the Jewish singing something, the Asians, the Mongolian, vocalists, they have these beautiful vocals and all that. Now, that is what has become part of the fabric of Australian life. And everybody accepts that as being the norm here now. I have a saying. I'm not saying bring down the walls within religions. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm certainly saying lower them. so we can at least stand
Yes.
over the gate and talk to each other.
Yes.
Music has a tremendous way of being able to do that. And once you start reaching out that way, and that is happening, and fortunately it's happening worldwide now, I think each faith community finds a tremendous exhilaration and to be able to celebrate
Yes.
each other.
Yes.
Just not yourself, but to celebrate each other. I think that is the direction we have to move in.
It's the emergence of the common ground, isn't
Yes,
it?
yes.
And so music establishes that common ground.
That's
would you
right.
say? Yes.
It does. My music has changed a lot. Within the confines of the Gurdwara, the Sikh place of worship, I do my hymns,
Yes.
which is my core spirituality, to the devotees of Sikhism.
Yes.
But once I step out of that arena and I'm in the mainstream, then I dabble in music from other parts of the world. Because first of all, my group itself is of a multicultural mix.
Yes.
The only other Sikhs in my group are my own family. The rest of my musicians are all non-Sikhs. They are Christians, they are Muslims, they are Hindus. They come from all different backgrounds. And for them to be able to join me, I find it very exciting to be able to do something which is from their background as well.
Yes.
In my own way. In my own way. And once you do that, you find that you are able to reach out to everyone, because everyone finds something which they can associate with. And it's coming out of a guy's mouth who is bearded and turbaned, who looks quite alien, but yet they suddenly realize, yes, there is a commonality that we can all enjoy and celebrate.
Yes. Yes. It reminds me of jazz in America in the 40s, 30s, and 40s. Seeing white men and black men playing together.
It does. And I mean, you look at the examples of people like Ravi Shankar, for example, when he first played with Yehudi Menuhin, who is a Jewish violinist, one of the best in the world. And Ravi Shankar, of course, one of the best musicians from India.
Yes.
Now, when the two of them got together and they did concerts in the 70s, I think, West meets East.
Yes.
They were sensational. Because it was completely two different cultures coming together.
Yes.
Just in music. Because again, music doesn't have those barriers.
No.
You can reach out to each other and feel completely comfortable that your way of life is not threatened, but you can celebrate somebody else's way of life as well and join in with them to celebrate their life.
Yes. Yes, it speaks to a different part of the human spirit.
Exactly.
It's a communication without words, and I think that's the power of it.
That's right. I sing in my own language.
Yes.
Non-Sikhs or non-Indians don't understand a word I sing, but they can come out of that feeling, there was something which touched our spirit.
Yes.
We don't know what you were singing, but you were certainly reaching to our soul. And I think that's what it's all about. So even though I'm singing words,
Yes.
no, they come across not as words, but as a language which can be understood by the soul.
Yes. Yeah, so it's almost a prayer.
It is.
Yes.
It's a universal prayer.
Yeah. Which then leads me to a point. You've have a multi-faith chant,
Yes.
which in fact is the background to our production.
Yes.
So that chant is the chants of the major religions. What's the history of that?
These are influences from my childhood. Now, when I do the cry of the Muezzin,
Yes.
it brings me back my childhood, because you have mosques virtually at every street corner, and at certain times of the day, you have the cry of the Muezzin. You go into a church and you hear these Gregorian chants, and there is something very, very out-of-body experiences.
Yes.
You walk into a church and you hear a Gregorian chant. I have goosebumps just thinking about it.
Yes. Yes.
You walk into a Buddhist temple and you see the monks chanting. Again, it's an out-of-body experience altogether. The desire to be able to do something along the same lines.
Yes.
That's what my spirit speaks out to me. And when I get on stage and I'm able to go through these different chants, which I'm familiar with, and the beauty is, as years go by, There are people who will come to me, for example, right now, the Zoroastrians,
Yes.
we have become very, very affectionate with them. They're going to me and say, Dya Singh, you don't do our chant. I said, look, you'll have to teach me.
Right.
And not that I don't do it, it's simply that I don't know about it. Teach me the chant and I'll sing it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it is a cumulative sort of effect as time goes on.
Indeed.
And I celebrate that. In Malaysia, for example, recently, there has been some very touchy issues about the use of the word Allah.
Yes.
By non-Muslims. There are legal cases and all going on.
Yes.
And I was in Malaysia and we were doing this multi-chant. And suddenly I thought, oh no, am I going to say Allah or am I not? And amazingly enough, because I'm so used to it, I went ahead and I did it. And the people who commented me the most were the government officials who were there. They said, where did you learn that? That's fantastic.
Yes. Yes.
Because I'm not there to ridicule.
No.
I'm there to sincerely say, come on, I'm reaching out to you. I come with open hands. Look, no weapons in my hands.
That's right.
I've come in peace and I've come to give you a warm embrace because I know that this is what is in your heart.
What do you think the congregation, the people, can do to promote harmony and understanding? They're not all musicians, but how do you think people can do this, promote harmony and understanding?
I think there's a lot of education which needs to be done. And it's happening. In Australia, we have special cultural awareness classes now happening in schools. I know it's happening in Victoria, in New South Wales, in Queensland, in Tasmania. Not sure about Western Australia. Not sure about Northern Territories. But schools are now becoming conscious of the fact that youngsters from a young age should become more conscious of the diversity of cultures. Don't forget, religion is part of cultures, really.
Yeah, that's right.
Which means we can reach out to each other. And what we do when we have a congregation, for example, a congregation of different denominations, which is very exciting. I think it is the focus of education, greater awareness, which as artists we let flow into the community. And I think the community itself then starts generating further love and happiness and acceptance.
Yes.
I remember many years ago, we had the year of tolerance.
Yes.
And I found it amusing. Tolerance still means that I'm okay, I'm great, you are a piece of...
Yes.
But I will tolerate you.
I'll tolerate you, that's right.
And I spoke out against it very strongly. I said, no, when are we going to reach the year of acceptance?
Yes.
That you are my equal, you have a different way of life, but I accept you as my equal. I think those messages are now getting through to communities, and they're working on it.
That's a basic tenet of Sikhism, though, isn't it? Is to be able to accept everybody as being equal.
Isn't that so with every religion?
Yes, it is. But I'm sure that many of them.
You know what I mean? This is where it comes. I think this is where it comes to that point to say, hang on a minute, what really did the original founders of these faiths say? What did they really say?
Yes.
And the more and more I do my own research, I find out that's what they were trying to say. They were saying, no, accept each other as equals. Yes, move towards the way of God. But I don't think any of them said that God is exclusive to us.
No.
They never said that. Now, if only we can become more conscious of that and start moving in that particular direction, Sikhism is exactly the same. Don't get me wrong, I have the same problems with Sikhs. Last time we did a youth camp in Malaysia, which has been going on annually for the last 48 years. And I went to the first two as a participant. This year they got me there and they said, we want you to do what you do outside. I said, you sure? They said, yes. I said, well, it can't be done within the place of worship because where the Guru Granth Sahib, where the scriptures are concerned, I cannot sing anything else but that, which I fully respect, and that's the way it should be. But you do something out in a hall, I'll tell you what I can do. And we had this concert for these 1,000 youngsters.
Yes.
and the guys were screaming, and they couldn't comprehend what was happening. Here there was a Sikh bearded guy who was singing this Muslim chants and this Christian chants, and this is supposed to be a Sikh youth camp where we are supposed to be teaching Sikhism to our kids. So there was a lot of overwhelming support.
Yes.
But there were also those who were saying, no, this is wrong. So it was a very healthy debate which ensued after that. But generally the message was, this is what our youngsters need. We need to be able to teach our youngsters our faith in a global village situation.
Yes.
So that they understand that there are other faiths, we respect them, and we have our own. I think the phrase that we use, unity in diversity.
Yes. Yes.
I think that's unique. I think that's tremendous. And that's the sort of thing that we need to promote. But like I said, right from the beginning, I have to start promoting it within my own faith first.
Yes.
And it's happening. The founder of my faith, Guru Nanak, one of his musicians was a Muslim, and the other musician was a Hindu. Now, the trio of them went out doing the music that he did. Now, he has set me the example, which today, 500 years later, takes on a slightly different meaning, in the sense that I not only sing what he sang, but I also sing what Jesus talked about,
Yes.
what Muhammad talked about, what Zoroaster talked about,
Yes.
what Buddha talked about. That is what I am about. I'm still very true to my own faith. But I also celebrate the founders of all the other faiths, because they were all absolutely wonderful people who
Yes.
came to teach peace and harmony on this planet.
Yes.
And I think this planet needs that more than anything else at this point.
What's your dream? If you could see it now, what would the future look like? What would the relationship between the faiths look like? Where would we be at?
Look, I don't want to sound condescending, but I think Australia is a unique place for that. I love the Australian character. Australia has a culture of its own. We laugh about it, but Australia has a tremendous culture. The concept of mateship, the concept of a fair go,
Yep.
right? The carrot attitude towards authority.
Yes, that's right.
That's what the Australian character is.
Yes.
And I love that.
Yes.
Now, into that, then you have the mix of all these various cultures and religions coming in. We can start sharing our knowledge with each other. Just like we talk about the Aboriginal people.
Yes.
Australians have grown up, have woken up to the fact that they have a fair bit to learn from the Aboriginal cultures.
Yes.
That was
Indeed.
a no-no 40 years ago.
Right.
But today, we have grown up to the fact to say, hang on a minute, when it comes to land conservation, the Aboriginal people can teach us a fair bit about it. All these horrible bushfires that we have. If we had consistent fire burning practices like the Aboriginal people had,
Yes.
the chances are we wouldn't have had all these disasters that we would have had.
Right.
The Australians are waking up to that fact.
Yes.
Now, as time goes on, Australians will also wake up to the fact that we have a lot to learn from these different religions.
Absolutely. That's right.
I'm not talking of conversion.
No.
Don't get me wrong.
No.
But we can learn from each other to better our lives. That is the kind of ideology that I want to see happening on the whole planet.
Yes.
The sort of ideology that we are slowly moving towards ourselves.
Yes. Well, Dya, I think I might actually finish this interview with an absolute Australianism from the Australian culture, is to say, she'll be right, mate.
She'll be right. No, we should be able to celebrate that.
Yes.
We should be
indeed.
able to celebrate that.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
That's all for our program today. For more information, and if you want to see this episode again, visit our website at harmonyuniversity.net. Goodbye for now.
Baha'u'llah, Shanti Om, Allahu